Welcome to the Postpartum Coach podcast, where we embrace our needs as moms. We learn to lead ourselves first, then our families, and where we create our own healing from the inside out to find our way to the work we were meant to do in this world. I'm your host, a fellow mom of 3 and a certified life coach, Lizzie Langston. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is so fun. Speaking of fun, I wanted to do an episode today that was just fun and lighthearted. And I thought, what have I been having fun with lately? And I have been having the most fun with homeschooling, getting into homeschooling. I actually started homeschooling technically on the record about December of 2019. Okay, so I don't even want to count how long that's been, but December 2019, right before the pandemic, my son was halfway through kindergarten and we pulled him out. And so today I wanted to share 7 tips and just ways that just really allow you to have more fun in homeschooling, because I really think it can be fun. And I know a lot of you guys homeschool. And for those who don't homeschool, or maybe you're on the fence for whatever this is worth, right? And some of us homeschool for a time in a season and then we don't. And honestly, anytime you're around your kids, homeschooling is happening. So yeah, this is really for everyone. Okay. The first thing I wanted to share, and I really do think this kind of makes you grow wings and just really expand in the calling of it, is that the calling is real. Okay. Whether, for as long as it is or is not, whether you chose it or not, whether you were homeschooled or not, if you're homeschooling, you've been called to homeschool and the calling is real. By the way, if you want more on homeschooling, there's a great podcast called the Called to Homeschool podcast with Meg, and she's awesome. So the calling is real. And so just trust that it comes from the divine within. I remember, specifically, I had kind of already felt called to homeschool before I put my son in kindergarten, but I had doubted it. So I did, a half of a year of public school education, where I drove him to school. There were some nice things about it. I think he learned some nice things, but I could tell pretty early on, just with the type of energy and the type of brain that my child had at that time, or has, I guess, but the way that his raw materials were at that time of him and who he is. Actually, I didn't even have to tell the teachers, kind of just mentioned to me during the kindergarten evaluations where they're deciding which kids go in which classes. Like, they were already just talking about what a handful he was going to be and trying to very wisely choose whose class he was in, a class that could handle a kid that has that much energy or whatever. Like, they already were kind of putting labels on him and putting him into this little box of a type of a kid. And while there might be some truth to it, I just didn't think that was going to serve him. And I thought, he deserves a little better than that right off the bat. So there was that. And there was, actually, gratefully, he got a teacher that didn't send home a ton of homework in kindergarten, which was nice. What was really hard is I was still just coming out of depressiveness, like postpartum. I was just finding I had just found coaching a few months prior and was feeling better, but it was still a lot for me as a full-time stay-at-home mom at the time. It was during the winter time. I was taking all the kids to school in the mornings, trying to get lunches ready and stuff. And obviously Jensen was the only one going to school, but the other kids had to come and they had to have at least a coat on because it was freezing outside. And then I didn't like leaving them in the car, pretty far across the street, because with all the traffic, it was just so hard to get them into school and to get him there on time. He was late many times. They sent us a letter, the principal did, I think after we had like 18 tardies or something. And I felt humiliated. And the biggest thing actually that I just like to share, I don't know, I think it's interesting. Everybody has very different reasons, I'm sure, for choosing homeschool. But the biggest actual reason was my kid was no more the way that I knew him. Like, his behavior when he got home from school, he was so exhausted. It was full day kindergarten. They didn't give a half day option. So he went from being full-time stay at home to full-time kinder. And while I think if I would have left him in, he could have maybe adjusted better, especially maybe by the next year or the next year. I wasn't willing to let that much time go by with my child's behavior being so different for him. He was basically screaming, through his behavior, this is too much. This is too much. And he actually developed a couple, like twitches. What do you call those? I can't remember off the top of my head. But his eyes and, one other one, I think it was something he did with his mouth where like he had never had those until kindergarten. And then also when we pulled him out of kinder, he stopped doing them. Now he has since done them some more before, and I've correlated it to like when I could be totally wrong, but my best guess is it's kind of when he's more stressed or emotionally loaded. Like right now we're moving to Costa Rica, and actually I haven't noticed anything lately, but things like that can kind of bring those up again. But it's really, really interesting how, following my mother's intuition has really helped him transition so well. I actually had a mom down the street who, she and I chatted one day after kindergarten got out, and we both just felt like, geez, this just wasn't working. Hers for very different reasons than mine. Her daughter, I think, had some stomach aches every time she went to school, like every day. Her tummy was hurting, and every day it was such a battle. So we both ended up homeschooling that December, halfway through the year. And it's been so beautiful. I'm just so grateful that option is there for kids, that it's a better fit, for whom it's a better fit. And honestly, also for parents. For me as a parent, it was a better fit. So I don't want you to, like, just, if you think your kid could thrive, but you just don't want them gone or whatever, like, I mean, to some degree, there's always a sacrifice of some sort, emotionally, physically, whatever, with parenting. But homeschool is just such a great option. I love it so much. So the calling is real. Trust that it comes from the divine within. The next thing I wanted to share is your parents don't care. So I was a public school kid. My mom was a public school teacher. My in-laws, I think, were public schooled as well. And so my husband and I both came from public school background. And so our families, I think, are still kind of having a tricky time transitioning to this idea that their grandchildren are going to be, I can't speak for them, but I would guess that it's a little bit uncomfortable, right? That their grandkids are being homeschooled. And that's totally understandable, and something that even me especially, I've talked to my homeschool coach, Meg Thomas, who's on Instagram at the Hippie Mama. I've talked to her about, about this stuff. And one thing that I realized after our chats with her and just really like contemplating this is that all parties involved with our kids, what they really care about is that our kids turn out great, that they're functioning, they're educated, and they can get by in society. They can find their passions. They know what to do with their emotions, and they handle those appropriately. And maybe an added bonus, they have a nice spiritual understanding as well, and nurturing there too. So like your parents, it might come off like they care, or your in-laws or whoever it is, it might come off like they care about what you're doing and that they have problems with it. But really, they just might not know for a fact that a homeschool education can produce an amazingly well-rounded child, right? Sometimes even far surpassing what the public school system can do in certain categories in certain ways. And so when you notice comments from other people, or doubt or fear or looks or whatever it is that you sense or pick up on, or people say, just remember they don't actually care about the homeschooling piece. They just care about how your kids turn out. And so your job is to grow your faith and trust and belief in you being the best teacher for them. Okay. And that's ultimately the foundation of your homeschool, is your belief. And I think it's nice if your husband has this belief too, but whoever does the most homeschooling, your belief that you are the best teacher for them. And the more you feel that deep in your bones, energetically, the less kind of either complaining or expressing doubts that other people will do. And the more comfortable you'll feel, and more confident and more flowy you'll feel in the homeschooling. Okay, the next one, this one blew my mind. Okay, I'm going to say it. It's the curriculum serves you and not the other way around. So you are the master of all curriculums. You are not a slave to any curriculum. The curriculum is not the boss. So whereas in the public school system, the curriculum is kind of everything. And we go by the curriculum. And if we have a question, we kind of ask the curriculum when we look at the curriculum. I mean, they're probably in a good teacher's classroom, there might be some variance from kid to kid if we're able to facilitate that. But in a large way, we've got these state tests that people have to pass to get funding for the schools, right? There's a system, and there's pros and cons to a system. But the wonderful thing about homeschooling is that you get to be at the top of that system, and the curriculum is only an asset or a tool that you use or don't use, or use partly, or use sometimes, right? All of those are options. So sometimes when we are feeling unsteady or a little bit dowdy or fearful in our homeschooling under the surface, what we do is we kind of attach ourselves to the curriculum and we go by the book. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying that that all those who have found a curriculum they love and they use it often are insecure or something. I'm not saying that, because there sometimes you find the perfect fit and the curriculum serves you so well, and so you use it and you serve it because it's serving you so well. So it's not like the curriculum's the devil, but you just want to be aware that the curriculum is actually not ever written in a book that you could buy. The curriculum of your homeschooling lives within you and in your heart, and then you imbue it to the hearts of your children. And that happens sometimes through using an external curriculum, but that also happens through prayer, through scripture study, through honestly just lovely chats with your children, through reading together. So curriculum is essentially like the main life lessons you want them to learn. And again, my homeschool coach Meg has the best workbook for helping you kind of sift through like what your priorities are and getting a vision of the next 10 years in your homeschool and stuff. So definitely go hit her up on the Hippie Mama, at the Hippie Mama on Instagram. I think she's also like Meg Thomas Coaching or something. I'll have to put her website. I'll put her website in the show notes. Okay. So yeah. I also want to recommend where I got that the curriculum serves you piece. I got that from Sarah Mackenzie from the Read Aloud Revival. And I'm also a member of her membership, although I don't get in there very often just because my kids are littler and I'm still figuring, we're moving to Costa Rica. That's like my big excuse for all the things right now. But really, it's big. I'm like, we're focusing on one thing, moving to Costa Rica as a family and not dying or getting burnt out in the meantime. Okay, the fourth one, and Meg says this a lot, it's all about the feast. So I just want you to know the pressure's off to like get it right or give your kids exactly what they want, which by the way, do they even know what that is? Like, you just want to give them a feast. You want to display to them, if education was food, you want to just have all different kinds of food from all over the world and different kinds of, very high quality, healthy, preferably organic if you're like me, foods. And you want to just have them all over the table. And then they just get to feast and they will naturally gravitate to those things that their body needs, right? And so your kids in their education, they will naturally gravitate to those things that are written into their life story, that are written into their little life's mission or big life's mission that they're going to accomplish. All of that already lives inside of them. So there's no perfect way you could deliver it that would make them want to do this or that. Their destiny and what they're going to do is laid out in them, in their spiritual DNA, their spiritual playbook, if you will. Okay. So for you, it's just about getting all the materials so that they can figure out and you can witness them figuring out exactly what they want to do. You can pray about that too and decide which foods to put on the table when, right? This is all hyperbole. Is that the right word? This is all, an analogy here. We're of course talking about an educational feast, but you can definitely be prayerful about when you put what things on the table, but more or less, it's just about the feast, just feasting. Okay. And then the next one is fun. Fun wins. Okay. They'll remember so much better when they're having fun. I can't even emphasize this enough. And you guys probably already know this, but think about the things you remember the most in your education. Whether you were home educated or publicly educated, think about the maybe standout highlight reels of your education. 9 times out of 10, they're either going to be super embarrassing moments where your emotions were really high or, something like that, or super, super fun where you were having the time of your life. Okay. So one example of this is I remember in elementary school, they taught us a song. This was Estes McDaniel Elementary in Henderson, Nevada. That's where I grew up. And they taught us this song about all the state capitals. So it's like Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana. Okay, and on it goes all the way to Nevada. We always sang that one extra loud because that was our state, right? but it was so fun. And music is definitely a way my kids and me, we love to learn and to remember things and to just all the things. We have like a long vowel, short vowel song. I literally make up songs. It helps that I'm like a singer and a songwriter, but you can do this too. I make up songs about all sorts of stuff. And then I try to remember them and we sing them often. And that repetition really just, they learn. So anyway, just remember that when they're having fun, they will remember so much better. So test that one out. And if you have a resistance to having fun, there's probably a fear that you're holding on to. So maybe just be curious about what that is and come get coaching in my membership community if you want to get coached on that. Okay, the sixth one is learning happens without you. Did you know that? It happens everywhere for your kids, and it happens without your conscious awareness sometimes. So that's just a consolation that's really come to me and been helpful. If my mind starts to be, I don't really do this anymore, but when I was for the first about 18 months of homeschooling, I did a lot of like, are we getting behind? What's my mom going to think when we get around her? And, are his cousins going to make fun of the way he reads? And all these things would go on in my head. And so it's just a consolation to know that learning happens without you, actually. And, don't flatter your ego like you're the only thing he can learn from. It happens all the time. It happens everywhere, even when it's not in your conscious mind. And then the last one is floors and ceilings. Okay, what this means is basically, and again, Meg Roundy Thomas taught me this one. I love this one. So basically, what I noticed is, and she taught it to me because in our session that day, I remember I was noticing that I would get stuck in, like if the morning wasn't going how I had planned. Let's say I was more tired, or the kids were more tired, or they were fighting more, or grumpy, or let's say it rained when I thought it was going to be sunny, and so that threw a wrench in those plans, or whatever. When something doesn't go as expected and things get hard really quickly, and what I was doing is I would just spiral, and I would want to like go work in my business, or I'd want to just like go take a drive, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I wouldn't be able to like still get some school done at all. It was either it had to be perfect fairy tale homeschool day where we're like cuddling on the couch reading books and it's so delicious, or we're nature exploring or something lovely like that, or I'm just like, I'm out, I'm done. And what helped me kind of bridge that perfectionistic tendency for myself, so I'm like, ding, 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 are you guys perfectionistic? Is Meg helped me make a floor for my homeschool. And what that means, it's not a physical floor, okay? What that means is basically a bare minimum. So you don't have to call it a floor. You could call it your bare minimum or whatever, your BM. But what is the bare minimum that you can go to on a day that's very hard, that will still count as school, that you've already defined it as your bare minimum, and that it counts and you can celebrate it and it totally counts. And even if it wasn't the amazing lesson that you had wanted to do or had planned, or your brain offers would be like the more superior thing to do. So I'll give you an example. Let's say handwriting is one of the subjects or the things that we're going to be working on that day. And maybe my handwriting floor is just putting out crayons and paper. That's it. Whether anybody does any handwriting or not is besides the point. That was my floor. And so if I at least get that done, I can celebrate myself for that day. And what that does, even though your brain's probably like, whoa, I cannot accept that. That is not homeschool. Just putting out crayons and paper. No, that's at least what my brain did. I kept trying to come up with my floors, like my bare minimums, my BMs. And Meg was like, nope, think lower. Nope, think lower. And I'm like, Meg, this isn't going to even be school. She's like, yes, it is. We're talking about the worst days, right? And anything better, great. But this is like for the day when maybe you're pregnant and you're feeling super nauseous and you just can't even stand up. It's for those kinds of days, or the day where your grandma just died and you are super just a ball of crying tears on the couch and you just need to be that way. So what can you do? You can put out pens and paper and call it handwriting. Okay. So these are these little, kind of bare minimums that can kind of catch you when you're fallen and help you be able to have something easy that meets you where you are so you can still celebrate. One thing I've noticed about my coach Meg, who has homeschooled so beautifully and successfully 7 children, her oldest is again going, I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but like serving a mission. And then her youngest is like, I don't know, 3 or 4, something like that, is she's just always finding something to celebrate. And so with that, I want to leave you with that. Find lots to celebrate and you can't go wrong. All right. I'll see you guys next week on the podcast, and be sure to check out my course if you need help with all this, and my membership. I can support you. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, Lizzie here. If you love what's on the podcast, you're going to love my postpartum anxiety online course. The course is designed to help you manage your anxiety, reconnect with yourself to avoid deeper depressiveness, and then address any broader traumas from childhood and beyond. To purchase the course, go to lizzieLangston.com/course. That's Lizzie, Lizzie, Langston, LANGSTON.com/course. I cannot wait to see and hear how you transform in the online course. I'll see you inside.